sweet little lies. Tell me sweet little lies. I'm not being shy about the theme of the parsha. Thank you, Fleetwood Mac, for starting us off. I'm waiting for the people to come join us while we sing about lies. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Don't tell me lies, don't you dare! Let me turn this off. Oh, is it about to get to the chorus? Hold on, I think it's gonna get to the chorus. Let's do it one more time. Here we go, here we go. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. No, please don't tell me lies. Thanks, Penina. I really find one of the most fun things is like to make all of life like a Torah Broadway. So come Parshat Toldot, and I'm about to explain the profound depth about lying. And how could I not play Tell Me Lies, Tell Me Sweet Little Lies? Okay, Lord have mercy, we have a massive class today. Massive in terms of profundity and depth and how it really can apply to every one of our everyday lives. So a lot is about to come down. Woo! Hi Hashem, can you please make this year so awesome? Can you please both also help us understand the content and the context of the parsha, and also really help us take a deep psychological insight and look, Hashem, into how honest we are being with ourselves and others. And thank you, Hashem, for the fact that we're alive and we're in the times of Mashiach and we get to learn Torah from the comfort of our homes or our beds. So thank you, Hashem. Thank you guys for showing up. Without you, that's where I would be. And thank you, JIC and Jody and Stacy and Johnny for, and our donors for just, making this year come to life. Like, how lucky am I? It's like the best. It's like really the best part of my week. For anyone that knows me at this point, this whole last year, my entire life has revolved around this year. A side note, if for some reason the internet isn't good, what you can do is not watch the live stream because the streaming can get choppy, so I've heard. But then if you watch the rerun, so apparently it works just great. And I love to give shout outs just because I feel so supported by the people who are watching and commenting, and also because we always want to dedicate this year. We want to dedicate our learning. First, we'll do that. So, Refuah Shlema to Shoshana Bat Chanachaya, to Aaron Yechezkel Oav Yisrael, Zera Kodesh Ben Leah Devorah Kivitia, that he should come back to life strong and good and well. To Elnatan Semach Ben David Ben Leah Devorah Kivitia, to Tova Tziona Bat Dina, and to Masha Leah Bat, oh gosh, I think it's Hinda, but you know who you are. We're blessing everybody with a complete Refuah Shlema. This is your opportunity. If you're sitting, if you're going to watch, if you're going to hang out with us for the next hour and a half, let's just take that deep breath and really ask Hashem to send the merit of our learning to whoever you want to send that healing to. We want to wish a happy birthday, Mazel Tov, to Devorah Leibowitz. Should have a beautiful year ahead. And Mazal Tov to Eliana Hedvat, the Kala that's getting married in just a few days. And here's the shout outs. Here we go. Shout outs to Aviva Bogart, Patty Gieber and Yafa, Joseph Ober, Sarah K, you know who you are, and Shir Nechama Mitzman, Charlotte Corin, Jenna Chana Natita Tzedaka, Shendel Deutsch, Jessica Leah Tayback, Barbara Heller, Sarah Anna Alon, Gabriela Leah Weintraub, Sherry Kadovitz, Lexi Grace, Kuchav Rosenbaum, Tali A, Gil Barron, Dari Karlibach, Ayala Plansky, the Rothbergs, and wow, I wrote a family, but now I can't see what my own writing says. But I just really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. It really does. It's so sweet when people write comments and they're there with me. It's like, wow, you're here. And so I'm really grateful for that. Okay. And Chodesh Tov, we're officially in the month of Kislev. And I just wanted, before we begin anything, to explain the segula that people have been spreading through WhatsApp groups. People have been spreading this segula that on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, you could just choose a miracle. And it's a segula that you should get a miracle in your life. Well, okay, it's true, but there's conditions, and I'm going to try to quickly explain them because this is totally nothing to do with the parsha, but it's like this. Rabbani Yamima Mizrahi brings this segula, I believe from Rabbi Chaim Vital, but the truth is I think it's someone else's name and I didn't have a chance to look it up. But there's a segula that if from Rosh Chodesh Kislev until the last day of Hanukkah, if you refrain from complaining, you can merit a miracle. Okay? And so we have to understand what this is and why this is about. Okay? This is not just a random segula out of nowhere. Like, just don't complain and then you'll have a miracle. There's really an idea behind it. So the segula is actually in particular for women. I was happy to remind myself of the segula, but men can join in the fun too. So what is the segula? The idea is that if a person can hold themselves back from complaining until the last day of Hanukkah, right? That night where you're like, oh, we light again. No, we don't. We already lit the 8th night. If we can refrain from complaining, we will merit a miracle. So here's why. What is a miracle? Well, a miracle is very simply when God changes his nature, or God changes the nature of nature. And then we have a miracle, right? The best example of this is the split sea. The nature of water is to come together. In fact, if you take water and you pour some here and then you pour some here, they'll actually kind of just come together on their own. Even in Hebrew, the word mayim is plural. So when God split the sea, this is going against the nature of water, and that makes it a miracle. So now we have to discuss our nature if we want to really understand the segula. And I know I'm speaking quickly. I'm doing it on purpose because there's so much I cannot wait to cover tonight. Or I really can wait to cover it. that was an expression. But I'm going to try to be very honest this evening. You'll see why soon. Okay, so we know that I'm going to speak just about women for a moment. But men, please just apply this to yourselves as well, because as we know, we all have the feminine and masculine within us. I just took ginseng, so my face is turning bright red. Just feel like declaring that. All right. Okay, so here's what's up. We know that women, if you had to ask what's the nature of women, right? What is the nature of women? So you might say caring, giving, mothering, compassionate. You might say a lot of things, but we have a little bit more of a funny perspective from the Torah view. And yes, the Torah does believe that the feminine is rising, and that will be the full potential of the Messianic age when the women and men are fully given equal respect, right? Different roles, but equal respect. But that's not really the nature of women. Let's say Chana Yael and Shandel were with me last year, and we discussed this. It's a little hard, right? So the nature of women is two things. First of all, we have a nature that inclines us towards sadness. Why? Because in the beginning of time, when Adam and Eve were having that whole interaction and we messed up, we got a curse. We got cursed, right? We got cursed. It says, Be'etzev, Tildubanim, with sadness you'll raise your kids. So we kind of get this curse of like inclining towards like, oh man, sadness, right? And we have something else that we know about our nature from the Gemara. And that is that women tend to, we're chit-chatters. We talk a lot. It's just true, okay? It's just true. Yes, there's quieter women, but as a whole, if you wanted to generalize, we talk. So what happens when you combine these two natures of sadness and speech? Well, you get sad speech. And what's sad speech? It's complaining. That actually, in fact, it's not just a stereotype on Seinfeld and the nanny and every other show that has a Jewish woman in it that we're complainers, right? It's not just the Brooklyn stereotype. We tend to complain. And we know that God hates this in the Bible, right? In the desert, every time we complain, he's like, why are you complaining again? You always complain. Like, what, I didn't keep you alive and keep you well fed and give you everything you need? But we do. We complain, men and women. And so what is the story of the segula that's been passing around that you'll get a miracle? Well, the idea is that if we want God to make us a miracle and change his nature, he says, fine, no problem. You change yours. And so that's the idea of the miracle that we can receive starting from Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Now, two questions come up often. Well, Nili, it's already a day past Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Can I still start? And the answer that I understand from my teachers is yes. Definitely begin, and definitely you're still meritorious of meriting a miracle, please God. And the second question is, but I can't be perfect. I'm going to mess up. And personally, I've already messed up. I already complained quite a few times, but the awareness that I was complaining and the willingness to change it is really what helped me through. So I'm just going to give you 3 quick tips, and then please God the parsha. Tip number 1, let's say you're complaining, ugh, I'm hungry, ugh, I'm freezing, ugh, I'm hot, oi, I'm starving. right? These are legitimate. We do get hungry, we do get hot, we do get cold, right? I'm so tired, especially for parents. Oy, bless you with strength. So how can you switch this? I'm so excited to eat. I'm so excited to drink. I'm so excited to get into a warm environment. I'm so excited to have a cold environment. I'm so excited to sleep, right? And then immediately we transform our complaint into excitement, right? It's so cool now for the last few years, ever since I realized this. Instead of saying I'm starving, I'm like, I'm so excited to eat. And then guess what? I'm so excited to eat. Like, that's a nice change. Tip number 2 is self-connect, okay? You're having a hard time with something, you want to complain about it. Have you given yourself empathy, right? Your spouse, your partner, your friend is acting X, Y, and Z, and it sucks in your eyes. And what are you going to do? Well, you could go to self-connect, right? I learned about this in NVC with Danny Cohen, and it's like, you give yourself that hug and be like, wow, Nili, this is so hard for you. This is really hard for you. You're really, really angry. You're really, really angry, and that must suck, and that must be so hard. Oish. So you go to self-connect, and that can undo a complaint, because instead of complaining, instead of doing self-pity, which has that aspect of pleasure in it, like, oh, everything sucks for me. It's like the ego is all wrapped up in it. We do self-compassion, self-empathy, and that really helps. And the third step is turn your complaint into a prayer, right? You have something you're complaining about, finances, Hashem. Like, oh, I have no money, I'm broke. Hashem, help me, please make parnasa. So anyways, I bless us all to reawaken this awareness of the idea that this time of year is not just a time of year for miracles, but it's a time for changing our nature. And so I bless us to all try on this campaign, the No Complaint campaign. See if we can raise our awareness around complaints. And then, please God, we really should merit miracles, starting now all throughout Hanukkah. Okay, so now that I really wanted to explain that. I also have a suggestion for the Shabbos. If you haven't started cooking, or if you're cooking for yourself, or if you're cooking for company, this really is the Shabbos to bring the Torah to life. You know, so many of us, like, we're trying to learn Torah, we're trying to connect to Hashem, but we forget to bring it into our lives. What, do you think I'm wearing red and tribal for nothing? No, this parsha is about Esav. I was trying to get red. That's not why I took ginseng. That was for mental clarity. But we want to make the Torah come to life. Like, that's how it's fun. That's how we want to keep doing this whole Judaism thing. It also could get so boring, right? No, we got to make it come to life. So this Shabbos, choose yourself some lentils, and make yourself a red lentil stew. You could do it tomato based. You could do it with paprika. I love to add sour cream if you're not a vegan, if you're not eating meat. You could make coconut cream if you want to make it parv. I'm telling you, coconut cream, curry, and tomato paste in your lentil soup. Yum, yum, yum. And ask my friends, I make a darn good red lentil soup. So the irony is, if you make red lentils, it'll turn yellow. If you make green lentils, it turns kind of brown, which is easier to get red. So there's that. And make sure you have for yourself some red wine, because that is what we're going to talk about in the parsha. Now that we have our segulas and our parsha tips out of the way, I want to tell you what we're going to be doing for the rest of this hour, perhaps hour and a half. Lately, I've been going longer because I can, and you can tune out or tune in whenever you'd like. So I'm going to give a summary of the parsha, and I'm going to infuse it with some midrashim and some ideas. And then we're going to take the whole second half of the parsha and talk about the theme that I pulled out from it this year. Now, there's a lot of themes, there's a lot of topics, there's a lot of angles one could go into about this parsha. I chose one that I've never looked at, and I have been watching so many videos and doing so much research. I've been doing this for probably like hours every single day this week, so I could present to you some grounded and founded information. So yeah, we're just going to go through the parsha. Then we're going to choose one theme, which, if you didn't catch from all my titles, it's self-lies, right? We call the shir Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. You know, most people think about Toldot, when they hear Toldot, if they even have a context of what the parsha is, because even year to year, I'm like, wait, what was in Toldot, right? Oh, we know it's about the lentils and the blessings, right? So most of us think that there's this one day that Esav comes in from the field and Yaakov's cooking lentil soup. He's like, give me that red soup. And then the next minute, they're at Isaac's deathbed and they're getting their brachas. And then like Esav gets really angry, and that's Toldot. Well, I would love to give some clarity on this topic. We're going to get into the summer, but just check out these fun facts for starters. How old do you think the boys were, or the men were, when Esav came in from the field and asked for this lentil soup? Do, 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 do. They were 15 years old. And now check this out. How old do you think they were when Yaakov went in for the brachas and stole them from Esav? 63! Holy cow! Mind blow! Those of us that have been learning Parsha usually think this all happens on one day. And you know what's the craziest thing? We said this is Isaac's deathbed. Guess what? He doesn't die for years. It was a whoops. Whoops, I think I'm dying. He doesn't die for years. So, I mean, Lord, if you want to Dvar Torah for your Shabbos table, you want to blow people's mind, ask them what they think happens of the Parsha and then say, did you know? Lentil soup is age 15, blessings is age 63, and Isaac doesn't really die. And you know what's crazy also? You could trip people up. If you ask them how old was Esav and how old was Yaakov, they'll tend to give you two different ages, forgetting that they were twins. So this is all really fun facts that I just wanted to introduce. But now, here we go, into the summary. This ginseng is making me quite hot. All right. So we have the story of Yitzchak and Rivka, Isaac and Rebecca. They endured 20 childless years. Here again, we could talk about infertility. And I love to bring up the topics because, hello, so many people are going through this and it's really not spoken about. But you know what? The Parsha, again, with the holiest people in the world, brings up infertility. And they're praying for 20 years. You know what? We have the next topic, the power of prayer. The power of prayer. We could do a full hour shir on every single one of these. Their prayers are answered and Rivka conceives. She has a very difficult pregnancy, as we know, that, you know, God tells her that there's a struggle inside of her. There's two nations in your womb. So every time she'd go past a house of avodah zarah, of idol worship, Esav would be like, get me out, I want to party, right? And every time we go past a house of prayer or meditation, Yaakov would be like, I want to go there, right? And we hear this prophecy from God. And another theme here is a lot of us try to polarize Yaakov and Esav. But the truth is that the main lesson out of this is that all of us have Yaakov and Esav inside of us. Inside one womb, inside of one place, inside of one person. There's a beautiful Native American proverb that says inside of every one of us, there's a good wolf and a bad wolf. And the question is, which one is stronger? What do you think? The answer is whichever one we feed. That Yaakov and Esav are in both of us. This isn't the story of good versus evil. It is. It is, and we could have that as a parsha theme, but it's also a story of which one are we feeding. That one will naturally get stronger. So, as we know, Esav emerges first after doing great damage to her womb. In fact, the Midrash Tanchuma says, she was meant to have 10 more children, just like the tribes. But because Esav did physical damage to her womb, she was unable to conceive again. As we know, Yaakov was born clutching the heel of Esav, hence the name Yaakov. It has Ekev in it. Esav grows up to be a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Yaakov, a wholesome man, a dweller of tents, ish tamim, and that Yitzchak favors Esav and Rivka favors Jacob. And here we go. We already have sibling rivalry. So again, if in your family you experience sibling rivalry, you're not a loser. Your family doesn't suck, or maybe it's been hard to grow up with them. But this is in the Bible. Parsha after parsha after parsha, we have sibling rivalry in like basically every single parsha of all of the book of Genesis. So like, you know, if it's difficult for you, I bless you to have a way to make peace or to pray for. We should all pray for each other because, again, what I love about the Bible, it's so real with us. It's so real. It deals so clearly with all of these feelings that we tend to stifle, like jealousy or rivalry or hatred. Like we all go through them. If we're not admitting them, we're just repressing them into our shadow. Okay, we have the whole story here of Esav possessing Nimrod's coat, Nimrod that had stolen it from Shem, that got it from Noah, that got it from Adam and Eve, this magical coat, you know, like the coat that God gave Adam and Eve that had the smell of the Garden of Eden that attracted all the animals, which is the reason Nimrod was such a good hunter, and the reason, I told French, I never did this before, but I hope you are laughing while we are learning Torah. Okay, so anyways, we learn all about these amazing midrashim, and then on this one particular day, Esav returns exhausted from the field, and he's so hungry. You know, he's been busy doing a whole bunch of potentially negative things, but why? We have a midrash about this too, a phenomenal one. Rabbi Breitowitz, who's like the bomb, and I highly recommend his YouTube videos, shares on, I'm just looking for the source. He shares here this most profound concept, and he says, that Chazal explains on Yiboneh, that's the channel, that actually Esav didn't deny God until that very day, because it was that very day that Avraham had passed away. And Avraham, their grandpa, right? If Yitzchak is their father, then Avraham's their grandpa. Avraham was apparently the only person in the world who believed in Esav. And by the way, that's why Yaakov was making lentil stew, because lentil stew is the soup of mourners. And when Esav found out that Avraham died, and Avraham was like the last person, okay, Yitzchak loved him, but he a little bit like, he didn't have the same belief in Esav that Avraham had. And when Avraham dies, Esav just loses it and says, screw this, F it all, I'm going to do whatever I want. And Reb Shlomo Carlebach says the most amazing thing. He says, all a child needs is one adult to believe in him. Reb Shlomo Carlebach says, all a child needs is one adult to deeply, he doesn't even say deeply, he says to believe in him. And Esav felt connected as long as he had that one person believing in him. But you know what? He died. And Esav Mamish lost his mind. You know, if we want to really understand Esav better, it's very hard to be a troubled kid. And a lot of us were troubled kids or are raising kids that are difficult or have challenges in school or with friends or whatever. So it's very powerful to read about Esav as just this broken 15-year-old kid who needed someone to believe in him. But at that point, he starts messing up. We know the whole story with the lentil stew. Pour that red stuff down my throat. And like parsha cuts, and all of a sudden we're in the land of Gerar and the Philistines, and this crazy thing happens again, and for the third time a foremother is presented to the king or to the leader. In this case it was I believe it's Abimelech, I don't know, ignore me. Anyways, he presents to the leader of the Philistines Rivka as his sister, and she goes to get abducted. Tell me why. This is the third time in the Bible. We're on, let's see, Breshit, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayera, Chai, Sarah, Toldot. We're on the 6th parsha. How is this the third time that a woman is abducted and taken for immoral practices, and our forefathers are calling them their sisters? Like, what is going on here? Okay, we're not going to explore that topic, but I promised you an in-depth summary, so I wanted to give it to you. Holy cowabunga. Anyways, then Yitzchak goes on to all this well digging, and, again, we're not going to get into it, but wells are also a deep, punny, a deep topic. And I want to say like this. What is a well? A well is a place where you're seeking water. Right? So you're seeking insight, you're seeking Torah, you're seeking purity, clarity. And first what you have to do is you have to dig out all the dirt, and you dig and you dig and you dig and you dig, and you you clear all of that schmutz out, and then you can strike water, and then the water, the insights, the clarity can rise. So if there's any place in your life that you do also want clarity or connecting to the wisdom of the generations, to dig a well, you actually have to dig out, you have to excavate all of that crunk, all that, part of my language, crap. Right? So that might take journaling. That might take stopping to watch certain things that you're watching. But that's the idea of a well. Esav goes ahead. The next thing we're at, they're already basically, Esav is 40, and just like Avram. And, we're not going to go there, but he takes 2 Hittite women, and Esav has already gotten really corrupt, and he's already lying, and he marries this woman named Ahalivama and changes her name to what? Yehudit. He marries a woman he wasn't supposed to marry and tries to cover it up by calling her Yehudi. Like, that's wild. If you did not know that, like, holy cow, what is that about, right? And at this point, Isaac has grown old and he's gotten blind, and he expresses his desires to bless Esav before he dies. Okay, so now this is where the story gets bonkerlific, bonkericious. So what happens, okay? Esav goes out to hunt for his dad's favorite food. Now, mind you, according to the Midrash, in Breshit Rabbah, Samech Zayin Bet, it says that everything that he caught, the angels would come and free it to postpone him because they were kind of on Yaakov's team, that Yaakov should get the bracha. And then in the end, says Targum Yonatan in Kaf Zayin Lamed Aleph, you won't believe what Esav did. Every year I forget this, and every year I'm like, oh my God, that's so gnarly. At the end, because he couldn't catch any of the wild animals, like the venison that his father wanted, he ended up killing a dog in order to serve the dog to his dad. Now, just for fun and jokes, I'll tell you a story. One time I was living in Ghana and I had this little side hut on the road next to the university where I would go get like rice and vegetable stew every day. And until one day they were like, oh, do you want the meat? And I would like, meat? I thought that was vegetable stew and I'm a vegetarian, you know? And the craziest thing is you can like pass by certain stores and you see like dogs chained up in the butcher's ready to eat. And it's like the thought that I had probably eaten dog was like, ugh. And like I wasn't even kosher then. And poor Yitzhak is going to get served dog by Esav. Mind blow. Okay, so now let's look at what really happens in the story, okay? So the craziest thing, right? Rivka covers Yaakov in fur, right? This is my attempt at fur. I like, that's a really flimsy costume. Like, what if he gets touched in a place where the fur is not? Like, what is going on here? And then immediately something seems funky, and the verse says that Yitzchak says to Yaakov when Yaakov sneaks right in there, "Who are you, my son?" He already, what, like, why do you ask someone, who are you? If he just sent Esav off to get me meat, like, why, when someone comes in with a dish smelling like meat, you say, who are you, my son, right? Like, that's already weird, right? So the answer is, Anochi, Esav bechorecha. It is I. Esav is your eldest. Or it is I, Esav, your eldest. And this is a weird sentence, so Rashi comments on this in Pasuk Yutet. He says, no. He wasn't lying. He said, it is I. And Esav is your eldest. But, like, does anyone else want to call the BS on that? Like, what? So I was watching a shir on Hidabrut by Rabbi David Kaplan, and he says it's like when you were in 7th grade and you threw the paper airplane, and the teacher says to you, Kaplan, was that you who threw the paper airplane? And he says, no, I hurled it. You know, like, come on, who are you lying to? Right? Like, but Rashi says he didn't lie. And the reason for this, well, I'll explain it in the moment. So the next in Kafeh, Yitzchak says, wait a second, are you my son Esav? And it says, Vayomer Ani. So Rashi comments again, and he says, he didn't say I'm Esav, he said I am. Right? Like a Peter Tosh song. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. We could all just say right now, very philosophically, I am. But like, come on, Rashi, what are you saying he's not lying? I mean, the guy is blind, first of all. Second of all, the whole thing is an intended deception. I mean, he's got this silly costume on in the first place. Like, Rabbi Kaplan says, this is where the expression, he pulled the wool over my eyes, comes from. Like, literally, like, let's just get this straight. He's blind. You're trying to deceive him. That's why you went in there. Rivka very clearly explained it. Duh. It's premeditated. You're going in to steal something. You are lying. So, like, what is Rashi saying? You're not lying. Okay, so what Rashi is really coming to get at is, it's interesting, right? It says, like, there are certain times where you have to lie, right? If a bride looks ugly on her wedding day, you tell her she's gorgeous. There are times you have to lie. You have to lie sometimes. But he's saying, like, if you already have to lie, like, make it the smallest lie possible that you could make. So Yaakov, as if, found this way to say, like, no, like, I am, right? So, okay. Well, like, that, you know, he says, like, don't slobber over the lie you have to tell. Like, if you have to speak Lashon Hara because someone's going to get married to someone and that person doesn't look like a good story, you don't get to be like, oh, well, I happen to not like the guy, so let me just tell you all about him. Oh, this is great. Let me degrade a person. Let me disparage someone in mitzvah form, right? Like, that's not what it is, right? But what is it? It's that the nature of lying, it's dangerous. It corrupts. So we have to be careful. So now we really want to ask what's going on here, right? By the way, I'm going to finish the summary and come back into it. Essentially, what happens is he gets the brachas. We know what happens. Esau finds out. We're going to get there in a second. Eventually, Yaakov leaves to Haran to go find wives. And that would be the end. But now we're going to get back into the story, okay? Just going to organize myself a little bit here. All right. So, twice Yitzchak says, "Who are you?" Right? When you know someone is standing in front of you, you don't need to ask them why. Right? And what do you mean? Like, why are you asking me who I am? You just sent me. So obviously Yitzchak smells something is wrong. Right? He even says you have the voice of Yaakov, and yet he still gives him the bracha, even though he was curious. Right? And then Esav comes in and says, "Arise, father, eat from what I've," from Pasuk 33, "eat from what I've hunted for you." And now he's like, "Wait, miata, what's going on?" And Esav now smells a rat. Esav already knows, because how do we know? The wording is, "I'm Esav, your Bechor." And he already knows what's going on. And then it says that Yitzchak starts to tremble. He starts to tremble. But what do you mean he starts to tremble? He already had a sneaking suspicion of who he was giving the bracha to. He already gave the bracha, and not only that, but when Esav figures out that when Yaakov when Yitzchak and Esav figure out that Yaakov come to take the bracha, he says, "Oh, who was that guy before you that I blessed? He should be blessed." So Rabbi Kaplan brings the following thing. He's like, "What do you mean? If you found out that someone stole a bracha that you intended for someone else, you don't say he should be blessed. You say, what the hell? What's wrong with that guy? You don't say he should be blessed. Literally, the pshat says he should be blessed. So what's going on here, right?" Well, one thing that we see is that there was this place where Yitzchak and Esav as if had a conversation, where he says, "What? He cheated me twice!" And Yitzchak's like, "Wait, when did he cheat you otherwise?" He says, "Well, I sold him my birthright." And at that point, Yitzchak knows, oh, so he is the Bechor. He should be blessed. So that explains that. But you know what? We're about to get to the crux. And the crux is like this. It's not an elaborate costume, right? He has the voice of Yaakov. He even brings up God and says, please. And like he's speaking like he's speaking religiously. We already know Yaakov is not wily. He's not sharp. He's literally a simple man. It says he's an ish tam. So the question is, what did Yitzchak realize at that moment? Well, he realized he gave the bracha to Yaakov. He realized that he's deceived by Yaakov, and he realizes he's deceived by Yaakov with this righteous speech and this silly costume. And this is the point where Yitzchak starts to tremble, because the following: the whole point of the deception of Rivka and Yaakov to Yitzchak was the deception itself. Let me repeat this again. The whole point of the whole deception is in that moment Yitzchak realized he was tricked. He was deceived by his simple, holy son who sounds nothing like Esav, doesn't act like Esav. The time was really quick. He already was suspicious. The costume sucks, let's be real. And for for Rivka, this was the moment of truth to show her husband that the whole point of the deception was just for him to realize he was being deceived. That Yitzchak wants to bless Esav, and Rivka has to figure out some way to show him, you've been deceived by Esav all along. Yitzchak, I know you love Esav, but he's been tricking you all along. And if you could be deceived by Yaakov, then holy crunk, you gotta realize, brother, you're being deceived. In other words, you're getting lied to. In other words, you're practicing self-deception, Yitzchak. Come on, wake up. The ultimate proof, if you could get tricked by Yaakov with his righteous speech, if he's been deceiving you now so easily, maybe wake up and smell the coffee. Holy Yitzchak, I'm sorry, I'm not insulting you. You're way better than me. But maybe we need to wake up and realize we've been being fooled. We are prey and subject to deception, and primarily self-deception. What was he trembling about, says Rabbi Kaplan? Yes, it says, what's the source? It says, I believe in Rashi on Breshit, Rashi on Breshit 27:13. And I learned this from Yemima Mizrahi, that when Esav came in, Yitzchak saw Gehenim open up before him. And this is what he understood. He understood. Why was he trembling? He almost blew it for eternity. He almost gave the blessings to the side of wicked and deception. And the whole thing was this proof from Rivka, Yitzchak, not only can and could you be deceived, but you are being deceived. And not only that, you're being deceived by Esav. What's Esav? It's the yearning to protect our ego, our self-projected image, our taivas, our desires, that which we want to feel good. And so, and by the way, it says in Gemara Sanhedrin 37a, this reference to the clothes, right? We know about clothes being a beged, and that it shares the root of boged, right? Betrayal. So then, every year I take a different angle on this parsha. A lot I've focused on Esav, or the forces of evil are good within us. And this year I'm like, holy crunk. I think the Torah is screaming at us to examine our own deception. Because if Yitzchak, our forefather, this brilliant, elevated, righteous son of a tzaddik man could be so deceived, well, guess what? So can we. And here's the thing, is initially I was like, why are they all such liars? Why is everyone lying? Why is Yaakov lying? Why is Rivka lying? Talk about liars. We could go back all the way to the beginning. The Satan and the Nachash already lying to Eve. You'll not die. You'll be like God. Cain, God says to him, to Cain, where's your brother? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Liars. Noah and the whole generation with the tower were totally lying to themselves, right? Abraham lies to Pharaoh about Sarah being his sister. And then, I could give you sources on all of these. That was Lech Lecha 18:19. Then 18:15, last week, Sarah denies lying. And Hashem says to her, no, you did laugh. You're lying, right? And then Betuel and Lavan lie. And then Esav lies about his wife's name. And then Rivka and Yaakov lie to Yitzchak. And then Yitzchak lies to Avimelech about, it's just like, what? And then Yaakov lies to Lavan, and Lavan lies to Yaakov, and then Rachel lies to Lavan, and then the brothers lie to Yaakov, and then Yehuda lies to Tamar and Yaakov, and they're all lying. They're all lying. And it's like, holy crunk. Why are they all lying? Why are they all lying? Why is Yaakov lying? Why is Rivka lying? I thought these are supposed to be our role models. And then, boom, it hit me like a ton of bricks, although I don't think that would be the sound effect for a ton of bricks. So boom, might be better. It hit me so hard that I always tell my students, my girls, every single year, I tell them, nothing is ever about the other person. It's never about them. It's always about us. It's always about us. It's never about the other. If we're trying to be psychologically and emotionally honest, that thing that bothers us about the other person, right? You are what you hate. So here I am asking, why are they all liars? Why are they all liars? Why are they all liars? What's up with everyone lying? And I got it. Here's the crux of the shir, and then we're going to learn about it from a psychological point. It's not why are they lying? Why are they liars? We are lying. Me, you, we're lying. All the time. Every day. To others and primarily to ourselves. I mean, I knew this was part of my tikkun because Nili is an acronym for Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker. I have the word lie in my name. And I'm also desperately scared of snakes. So, you get, right? We talked about the snake's tongue splitting in two because it's a liar. You can't tell which way it goes. But like lying or not lying, Lo Yishaker is actually my name. Don't lie. And Lord have mercy. Sorry, Mom and Dad, to admit this. But Lord, gosh, have I lied a lot in my life. Blatant lies. And so what we're going to do for the rest of this year is, like I said, I've been doing some serious research about self-lies and self-deception, and I'm going to present that to you because I really believe what we can take, at least one idea we could take from the parsha this week is, yeah, we learned the summary of what happened. That's awesome. It was so interesting and fascinating. It was. But the real question is, at least that I have, is why is everybody lying? And the answer, now that you already have it, is because we're lying. We're lying. You're lying. I'm lying. And I really try to be honest. I really believe in honesty. And I still catch myself in lies all the time. So I turn to my favorite consciousness teacher. Her name is Emerald, and she runs a thing called the Diamond Net. And she has all of these awesome videos about self-lies and self-deception. And she says that 99 and she's a consciousness genius. I mean, this woman, wow, I really, really recommend her videos. It's called The Diamond Net on YouTube. Really recommend her videos. They're well-sourced. She's a genius. So she says about this. She says that 99.9% of the time, we're lying to ourselves. And she says that actually being honest with others is fairly simple. I'm going to start actually by saying not so, and I'm going to point out some of the ways that you and I are lying on a daily basis, or that we have lied, okay? So let's talk about others' deception, and then in a few minutes we're going to switch to self-deception and really focus on that. So first of all, as a kid, right, you're in 6th or 7th grade. Was it only me, or was somebody saying to you, oh my God, do you know this song by, okay, in my day it was like Green Day or Weezer, right? And I'd be like, oh yeah, of course I know that song. And like, I did not know that song. Write in the comments, did you know the song in elementary school? They're like, oh my God, have you seen this movie? And you're like, yeah, I never saw that movie, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I was lying from a young age. Did you guys also not lie about this when someone asked you if you knew a song or a movie? Maybe it's just an LA thing. I don't know. Now, how else are we lying today? We're lying to our partners all the time in fights. Right? You get into an argument, you get into a fight. Pay attention if you're speaking the truth, because Lord have mercy, you're going to catch yourself in a lot of subtle lies to get you out of the guilt and the blame instead of owning it. Can you admit it? Can you admit it? It's not just me. I know it's not just me. Okay? Getting out of commitments instead of just owning up, right? Instead of just saying, I'm not in the mood to come party, or I don't want to go out tonight, we'll say, oh, I'm not feeling good. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, this or that. Why you didn't get back to someone on the phone? I've really started to own this thing of I don't need to be attached to my phone. I don't owe anyone anything. If I don't respond, that's because I don't want to respond right now for my own health and my own well-being. But it took a lot of courage to start saying that. Because for years I had to lie to people about why I wasn't getting back to them on the phone or their messages. Well, dude, can we just excuse ourselves? Because heck, it's a lot of pressure to return phone calls and voice messages and text notes and all, and Instas and Facebooks and like, yeah. How about we stop lying to each other and we just say, I didn't want to get back to you at this moment. It's hard. In order to stop lying to others, we would have to accept our own needs. We'd have to own our own needs. And then be willing to be honest or confident enough about them to live our lives according to what we're needing instead of according to other people's standards. So can you also spot in this list of lies to others that perhaps you might be lying on a daily basis also? Yeah, so, when Emerald discusses in her video that being honest with others is fairly simple, I think that what she means is being honest with others is fairly simple if you were on a consciousness tirade like she and I and the other people watching her videos are. If you're like obsessed with consciousness and being honest and being real and living your life according to the truth, then yeah, not lying to others is fairly simple. But really, it's not unless you're dedicated to it. And now we're going to get more intimate and more real because the people we're lying to the most is ourselves. And again, thank you so much, Hashem, for making lying so evident that even the best of people, our forefathers, the greatest humans that ever were, there were lies spilling out of their mouths. So let's look at self-deception, okay? I wrote a lot of notes, so I'm going to be looking down a lot. I love to be able to talk to the screen, but I don't have this memorized yet, so. Okay, so she says that it's difficult to tell ourselves the truth or not to self-lie because we don't want to look at the truth of who we are or how we behave. We don't want to face that aspect of reality. And so instead of facing ourselves, we obscure the truth. And we do this, and this is kind of the key, we do this to protect and maintain our self-concept, right? The opposite would be enlightenment, where we want to see through all the self-lies. So if you're really seeking enlightenment, the first step is seeing through your own self-lies. And we'll discuss some of those lies later. But all this self-lies we're doing to protect our fragile self-concept. And she explains that we're habitually lying to ourselves constantly because we're trying to prop ourselves up to be this particular person that we've made ourselves out to be in our mind. And she says that she would lie to herself about all sorts of things. And I identify with these, and I think you might identify with these too, even as painful it is. We lie to ourselves about our preferences in everything from food to sexuality. We lie to ourselves about our emotions. We deny, stifle, repress our anger or upset. We lie to ourselves about how we feel about ourselves and about other people. I bet you right now, if you looked at all the friends you have, really do a selection of how many you actually like, right? Or you could use the rule of averages, right? This famous psychological idea that you're the average of the 5 people you spend your time around most. And then if your facial expression is, oh crap, then you might want to see if you really like the people you're claiming to like. And she says it's all in service of our self-concept. We repress these things away from our experience, which creates our shadow, which we've talked about a little bit, but we'll save that more for later. But the question is, am I lying to myself consistently to protect and maintain my self-concept? And she says she was shocked at how much she realized she was lying. I too am pretty shocked at how much I lie, especially as a person who claims to be committed to the truth. And that actually, that self-honesty becomes the most important tool in our arsenal for self-growth. So let's catch some of these lies, all right? So some of the examples that she and many other speakers that I looked up on TED Talks and all these articles, but I didn't write down the source, I can't quote it, but these are their ideas. They said some ideas of catching lies are you're attracted to someone or something, but you don't want to admit it. That we could really identify when we're first a kid and you like a guy or you like a girl and it's like, no, I don't. And it's like, yeah, you do. Like, when are you just going to own it, right? Or we do this, we deny attraction to uphold social ideals because, well, it's, you know, I've never had any thoughts about anyone that's not my partner. And it's like, yeah, you have. How about we just face it and then learn how to deal with it responsibly? Right? Instead of denying your attraction to a certain person, especially if you're in a relationship with someone else, you admit it and then you could spend less time around that person, or you can really do something to honor your relationship. You have to be honest, and you're going to miss out on certain things for being honest. Or another idea that is proposed is we trust our memory, right? If you want to catch yourself in lies, see if you're really trusting your memory, because a lot of times I have to ask myself when I'm in a discussion about someone I'm close to, wait, was that true? I don't know if that's true. I can't trust my memory. Our memories are so fragile and we reconstruct them so easily. So if you find yourself relying on your memory, maybe pay attention there. Okay, and this is the next tip I'm going to give you is a favorite therapist trick. So if you want to know how your therapist like always knows how to see through you, well, I've been practicing this thing for about a decade called the always and never rule. If I hear a client say, I always this, or he never that, so every time we say always and never, every time, right? And we're actually lying to ourselves, because nobody always anythings and nobody never anythings, right? In fact, when we're dealing with what's called self-referential thoughts, we often work in absolutes. So if you ever hear yourself saying, he never this, or he always that, or about yourself, you can know that there you're lying. Another interesting thing that I learned about is that we lie to ourselves with our laughter. That actually the statistics that I researched are that 80% of laughter is actually sinister or malicious. Usually we're laughing at and not with. Very appropriate for the Parsha of Yitzchak to really take a look at our laughter. How often, like, listen, when you're laughing with somebody, at somebody, listen to what you're laughing at. Are you laughing at or are you laughing with? Because this is one way we lie to ourselves. They're just laughing. It was funny. But no, you're actually laughing at. Another way we can find ourselves lying is when you say, I'm so like this, or I'm so not like that. Chances are when you hear yourself say in those sentences, you're lying. It's usually just a projection. Another interesting one, which I really felt like, oh, crunk, ashamnu bagadnu, here's what's calling me out, is that there's actually an inverse relationship. This is very advanced, all these words that I'm using. So if you're not getting it, either re-listen or just give yourself a pass. There's an inverse relationship between conviction and veracity. So some people, some people will get very voracious or use a lot of conviction, and actually they're inversely related. So you could check yourself, right? We rationalize to protect our self-image, right? We want to make ourselves the good guy and the other person the bad guy, so that we don't have to actually look at our part of the story. So if you find yourself making someone into the bad guy, it's probably because you're avoiding seeing what your part of the conflict is. I know this is so tough to swallow, but isn't it so beautiful? Don't you also think this is the most profound way to take the Torah and apply it to our everyday lives? Well, clearly I do. She said that we actually, one of the things, what's the speaker's name? Shoot, I forgot. It was a TED Talk. She was really awesome. Maybe I'll post it afterwards. She said we lie to reflect our aspirations. So for example, we might say, I'll only have one glass of wine tonight, because we aspire to only have one glass, but we know we're having 3. Or yeah, I'll only take 1 puff. And it's like, yeah, 20 puffs later, you know, or I'll only eat 1 cookie, and we eat the whole thing. But we lie to ourselves because our aspirations are different. Isn't this so cool? This is so cool. Okay. Another way we lie to ourselves is through comparison. Anytime you find yourself practicing the voice of comparison, you can know you're probably lying to yourself about yourself. Because I would never do that. But the only reason it resonates with you in the first place is because you do it or you wish you would do it, right? Or I do it better, right? A lot of times, if we catch ourselves struggling to make ourselves more valuable than other people, and this is really core and key to self-lies, we can know that we're lying to ourselves. We can note, am I trying to make myself more valuable than another? Whatever it is, through the way that person hosts or cooks or dresses or talks, you might hear the voices in your head that are trying to make you more valuable. Catch the self-lies. Here's another amazing one that I know a lot of my dear girlfriends are guilty of, is overly negative thinking. Because the second you think you're the worst, or you're the ugliest, or you're the stupidest, or you're the least this, it's like, probably not true. So if you have a tendency, someone that I love very close to me practices this, and if you're watching it, I love you, and stop it, is like we really overly negatively think what we've done, or I'm such a failure. Like, okay, warning, lie. I'm so stupid. No, you're not so stupid. You just made a little mistake. So that's a lie. Here's another one that a very special person pointed out to me, because I have a tendency to do this. Exaggerations are often self-lies. The way that this very special friend put it to me, they said that exaggerations are actually a statement that the truth isn't good enough, or that reality isn't good enough. Now, I'm like, but what do you mean? I'm a drama queen. I love things feeling big. And then they looked at me and they're like, I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe if I really want to be so committed to the truth and stopping to do this self-lying, we all want to look at where we're exaggerating and why. So what can we do about all of this lying? Because again, the lying is all over the book of Bereshit. If you had to rename Parshat Toldot, I would call it Parshat Lies, Parshat Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. So what could we do? Besides for having awareness, and again, awareness is key. Besides for having awareness about all of those bullet points that I brought up and watching videos yourself, we can realize the underlying reasons why we're lying to ourselves. And here we have to be really, really honest. And most of the time we're going to find, does the research that I've done, that when we ask ourselves why we're lying, we'll find that it's mostly about superiority, that our lies somehow give us superiority, whether in conflict with another or in comparison to another. And maybe we can look at addressing some deeper issues. Or maybe, and here's the real clencher, and I really bless us with this, maybe we can try to cultivate or create some self-love instead instead of having to build myself on the backs or on the smackdown of another? What if I just love myself more? And in fact, she says, we spend so much energy trying to maintain and protect our self-image. And I do. Oh, heck yeah, I do. Hello. I spend so much energy trying to protect my self-image, if I'm being real with you. Of course I do. Hello. But she says, we got to ask ourselves, what's the payoff for being in the prison of our own self-judgment? This protection of this person that I'm supposed to be culturally, or because I'm too afraid to be human or be vulnerable. What's the payoff? How much energy am I investing? And then there's like a double suck, because frankly, when we don't maintain that self-image, then judgment comes in, and we let judgment judge us all over the place for not upholding that standard of what we were supposed to be. You know what this holy consciousness master taught? She says she's very straight. Like, I'm very animated, she's very straight. She keeps a straight face. So she says like this: another way to reduce self-lies is to love yourself unconditionally. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how you embarrass yourself, no matter how you failed in a romantic relationship, or even if you've been convicted and you're sentenced to an entire lifetime in jail, be unconditionally loving. It's not a pass for bad behavior, but it's an acceptance of self. And this is really amazing, because the truth is, the reason we lie is because we don't love ourselves unconditionally. Through all of our embarrassing thoughts and actions and embarrassments and beliefs. If we could in fact love ourselves unconditionally, then we wouldn't need to lie as much. So she says, your actions, your emotions, your thoughts, your urges, they can never invalidate your existence. I'll say that again, because I needed to hear it again. Your actions, even the stupidest ones. Your emotions, even the most ridiculous ones. Your thoughts, even the most perverted or mean ones. Your urges, even the most socially unacceptable ones. They can never invalidate your existence. You're supposed to exist, or else you wouldn't. You don't have to prove your worth to be here. That would be conditional. That would be called conditional love, if I have to prove my worth, right? She says love is to accept reality as it is. I'm like this, you're like that. We fall short. We don't want to do certain things. We don't want to own up to other people's expectations. We don't want to go to this or that party. Okay. That's the reality. Now, can I love myself through it and for it? So, it's not just this parsha, and it's not just this awesome study into self-lies and self-deception that's so profound. In fact, it's one of the 10 commandments, right? We're not actually allowed to lie. So I think it's very wonderful and incumbent upon us in this month of Kislev, where we're building up to Hanukkah, of seeing the light in the darkness. We really have to embrace the darkness first, right? And to realize that it's never just about them, these people in the parsha, and we don't ever actually have to ask the question again, why were our forefathers and foremothers all such liars and lying all the time? We're the liars. Yeah, okay, let's not label us. We're not liars. We deal with lying. I take that back. We deal with lying, and we deal with it for good reason. We're trying to protect ourselves, but there are other ways around it, through awareness and developing and cultivating practices of self-love. She says, understanding our self-deception, this is another person, I just forget her name. Understanding our self-deception is the way to living a fulfilling life. Because in this way, you and your real needs can get met. And she says, when we admit the truth, we have the opportunity to change. When we admit the truth to ourselves, then we have the opportunity to change, to grow, to get enlightened, to have greater ease, to have our needs met, to confess to that which we're really needing or wanting, because that's what it is. And to love yourself is to accept all of that. Right? Again. So, wow. Oh my God, I finished the shir in an hour. This is a miracle. See, I merited the miracle already. So sweet. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick review for anyone that jumped on late, or just, I love reviewing at the end of a shir. There's so many ideas. So we started by saying about it's Chodesh Kislev. We talked about the segula of not complaining, and by doing this we merit a miracle, because a miracle is asking God to change his nature. So he says, no problem, you change your nature, I'll change mine. So we are being challenged until Hanukkah to get awareness both of our self-lies and also of our complaints. If we're practicing complaining, we can make a change at that. Okay, then we gave Hashem, please organize my notes for me. Where's page 1? Can't find it. All right, I'll work with it. So we talked about the fact that we're in Parshat Toldot. We did Toldot. We did a summary of Toldot, and we said about how Isaac and Rebecca, Yitzchak and Rivka were childless. They got to have kids. It was a difficult pregnancy. 2 forces in her womb, but really it's because there's 2 forces inside of us, like that wolf. Which wolf is stronger, the good wolf or the bad wolf, the one you feed? We talked about Esav comes out first. We talked about he's a cunning hunter, and Yaakov is the simple man. We talked about the power of prayer, infertility, sibling rivalry. We talked about the magical garments that Esav had that were Nimrod's, that he had stolen all the way back from the Garden of Eden, that made the animals come to them. And on this very day, we'll get there. We talked about the day that Abraham dies. And so Esav just loses his shit and doesn't believe in himself anymore and doesn't know what to do. And so he sells his birthright. He sells the responsibility, the fact that he could believe in himself, that he would amount to something. He just sells it because it means nothing to him anymore, because Abraham's dead. What does it mean to him? And at age 15, Esav sells that birthright to Yaakov. We talked about how time passes, and we learned about wells and the deep significance of wells, how Esav takes on wives and is deceptive around that. Isaac grows old and blind but does not die. And at age 63, he's ready to give Esav the brachas, and then Rivka has to do this whole crazy deception, and everyone's lying all over the place, and Yaakov steals the bracha, and then we see that Esav, even though he willingly gave the bracha, even though he was suspicious, and then he still blesses him after he finds out that it was him. So what's all the confusion, and why would Yitzchak be trembling if that's the case? And Yitzchak was trembling because he got Rivka's point, and Rivka's point being, Esav, Yitzchak, you've been deceived all these years. That the deception was because he got Rivka's point, and Rivka's point being, Esav, Yitzchak, you've been deceived all these years. That the deception was the point of the deception. That Rivka was really, chokhmat isha banta beita, the wisdom of the woman builds the home. What Rivka was trying to prove to Yitzchak is, my sweet Yitzchak, I'm not trying to deceive you, but look, my sweetie, if Yaakov, our skinny little Torah learner who's so righteous, who can't even try to speak coarse if he tries, if Yaakov can deceive you, look, baby, you've been deceived. And so Yitzchak has to wake up out of his deception and realize he could have made a big mistake if he continued to lie to himself, and he was just saved by the grace of God. And from here, we get into the whole story of what does it mean, lying and self-lying. And we talked about how we lie to others. We talked about all the people who lied in the Bible. We talked about the fact that it's never about the other. It's always about us, that we're the ones that are lying, and that we owe it to ourselves if we want to feel enlightened or have more energy in life, because we're more free from having to guard that self-image all the time, of ways we are lying to others and then ways we're lying to ourselves. And we got ways to catch different ways we're lying, with always and never, and all these other things, and with exaggeration. And then we talked about realizing the underlying reasons why we're lying, what we can do about it, addressing our deeper issues, and perhaps cultivating self-love and acceptance, and even the highest form, right? And as she says, the way to really reduce self-lies is to love ourselves unconditionally, no matter what. Because none of our actions, none of our speech, none of our thoughts, none of our urges can ever invalidate our existence. So, thank you, Hashem, that Yaakov did get the brachas so that we could inherit this legacy of Torah, which is truth, right? It says that, I had a machlokes with some of it. I learned from Mora Leah Golam, and all of her family should be well, that if God had a stamp or a seal, like on an envelope, like back in the day, those what do you call that? Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. What is it called? I don't know. A seal, like that you stamped in. If God was to stamp his name, it would reveal itself to say Emet. So we are the people of truth, even though most of us are lying to ourselves every day. Our mission is to reveal the truth in this world, right? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We cannot create unity if we're creating division with ourselves and with others through our lives. So please, Ribono Shel Olam, Please help us gain awareness. Thank you so much, Hashem, for allowing us to study Torah and learn deep things about ourselves from our foremothers and forefathers. Thank you, JIC, for the shir, and thank y'all for being with me and watching. It really means so much to me. I probably also get an ego boost from it. I have to work on that, but I also really just appreciate it because I feel special, and I feel like all the work that I did in researching, I feel like I get to spread the Torah of Hashem, and that's such a great gift. So thank you so much for being here. And Laila Tov, and almost good Shabbos and good Chodesh, and can't wait to see you next week. Peace in.